drunk and full at the table for so long that none of the four men could remember what he'd had. They all sat still, stayed quiet. Nobody wanted to pay. Finally, somebody asked, "Who ate this much?" Accusations were made. A fight broke out. It escalated into a drunken brawl until one of the four men pulled a knife and stabbed the young writer just above his right eyeball. He died almost instantly. The man with the knife was arrested and put on trial. The other two men testified on behalf of him. But during the investigation into the death of the writer, it was taken into consideration that he liked to cause mischief. And although the two eyewitnesses disagreed about the details of what happened that night, the man with the knife was pardoned and set free. That was more than 400 years ago. The man with the knife was killed, and it took place in Deptford near Kent, England. But the murdered man is the very same fellow that I happened upon one night. His name is Christopher Marlowe. But let me begin from the beginning. This is a detective story, although it is one that is watched over by a ghost. I'm not going to inquire into the death of Marlowe, since that's been tried before by greater men than I with little success. It's my own attempt to make sense of the predicament that I find myself in now. But let me begin from the beginning. I invite you all to return with me to the scene of the crime. I have a gift. Well, actually, it's a disease. I've come to think of it as a disease. No, let me better say that it's an addiction, not a disease. But not to gambling or drugs or women, but to my gift. I have a gift for lying. But this was all before Marlowe and I met. I've been lying now since I can remember, to any, all, and everyone really, but lying to strangers was the easiest and by far the most fun. But to strangers only, as I've learned, you shouldn't lie to the people you love. When I was a boy, I used to read strange fairy tales alone in bed at night, and I thought maybe one day one of them would come true. But more than that, I thought what a thing it would be. What a thing it would be if only I could tell such stories to people. But I never wrote any of it down. And how could I, working in an office 7, 8, 10 hours a day with no one to talk to, no one to swap stories with? I mean, as for those off hours, they meant nothing. Just time enough to recharge the batteries. Up at 6, bathroom, dress, coffee over a newspaper. I take it with me on the train to the city. I walk from the station to the office building. There's these bums and wretches sleeping in the wet streets. Yeah, I may not like where I work, but at least you've told yourself that before, I'm sure. I'm at the office by 9, sit at my desk, these papers come in, they go through me, they go through me. And I send each one out again, each with a piece of my energy going with it. Energy I could use to write when I get home, but then I get home and I have none. I'm only ready for a quick meal and then bed. I hardly have the will to stay awake and read another strange fairy tale. And without the will to stay awake and tell myself a story, I know that my life belongs to an office job. So what then? Well, the urge, the need to create, it never went away in spite of all this. I mean, in spite of the drudgery and the solitude and the sheer demand to succumb all time and effort to the job, I couldn't let go. But I had no way to write. So what happens? I mean, the ideas keep coming, stories keep coming of their own accord, but they have no way out, at least not into a piece of writing. Yeah, the fiction comes to life, it leaves the mind of the storyteller, not through these fingertips, but through the tongue-touching teeth. And a new art form is, I saw a woman, my age, get up with her coat and purse. She looked at me. Nobody had looked at me for months. The way she was looking at me was calm and sincere. Hello, she said, and smiled. And I think I must have blurted out something like, did you like the movie? Because then I realized I didn't respond to her question. So, hello, I said quickly. And she smiled again. We walked out of the theater together, not really saying anything at all. The first thing I thought to do was hold the theater door open for her. We got outside. She put her coat on. It was cold out. She said goodnight and smiled again. And I watched her walk away, and the other people were coming out of the theater past me in twos and threes. I start to go back to the train station, and I can't explain what just happened. I mean, I come into work the next morning, and my gut, it isn't as tense. It feels different, I mean, much looser. Only when it isn't this way do I realize it hasn't always been this way, and the day has gone by much faster, and without taking much notice of the time at all, it's now Friday evening, and because I have nothing better to do, I find myself back on the train after work, headed towards the Rialto Kings. And this time they're showing a favorite detective movie of mine, based on the Raymond Chandler story, the story of the great private eye, Philip Marlowe, The Long Goodbye. I get to the ticket lobby and hoping I'll see her, but she isn't there. And I can't wait any longer. The movie's about to start. I go in. I sit down and I'm craning my neck around at all angles trying to see her walk in, but she still isn't there. The lights come down too quickly, and I find myself back in the throes of a great story. I mean, what I really came here for, I tell myself, just a great story, well told. Credits come up, and the movie finally finishes, and empty seats all around me, and I get up with my coat and putting it on, and as I walk back towards the theater, she's sitting right there. And she's been staring at me the whole time. I mean, I almost wonder what the hell might be the matter with this girl. Why should be staring at a guy like me? And I'm thinking all these things out loud, and I go up to say hello to her, and she asks me what I'm talking to myself about. Oh, nothing. Just only enjoyed the movie. I saw you here last week, didn't I? She said. Weren't you here then? Well, I don't know. I come here a lot. What were they showing? The Big Sleep. No, I saw you at Badlands. Weren't you here then? Yeah, I was at Badlands too, but weren't you here at the Big Sleep the week before last? Weren't you there at that showing? I was. I didn't notice her at that showing. What are you doing now? Oh, just going back to the train station. Well, we should get a cup of coffee sometime. It's the most beautiful words in the English language, by the way. I mean, made all the more sweet and awful because of my fondness for coffee. I could probably catch a later train. And she told me her name. And off we went. And that was quite a while ago. And later that night, after we had said goodbye and made promises to see each other again, I began thinking of those movies that we spoke about. The Big Sleep and The Long Goodbye. These two different plots about the same character, a private detective. And I kept thinking about this detective's name, Marlowe. And the thing was, when I met her, I'd already been lying for a while. favorite dirty legend of Christopher Marlowe, it goes back to his days in London. This is 400 years ago, and we're in the rehearsal of his new play. The actor playing the scene stops the speech and says he wants to make a line change. Why? Everyone asks. It just doesn't sound right, the actor says. Can't we change it? And nobody in the theater knew what to say. And this actor, like the contemporary academic, mistook the speechless bewilderment of the room as a nod of approval before saying, I'm going to say it my way. And then from the back of the theater, somebody called out, like bloody hell you will. You aren't changing your knickers without my say-so, you smelly prick. Come forward. The actor did what he was told. He could see Marlowe, the young face of a scoundrel poet, now calm as a tombstone. And nobody in the theater expected what happened next. Marlowe challenged him to a duel. The preparations were made. 3 days later, they met in this field at midday, and they drew blades. And the poet, ruthless with the rapier, killed the actor. He killed the actor for suggesting a line change. I love that story. And the way that Marlowe sprang himself on that poor actor was how I came to meet him. In a way as unexpected. I mean, it was like a habit for him. I'm sure he enjoyed it. Now, I kept seeing more of that woman I met at the theater. And she had grown fond of me. And I had grown fond of her. But she didn't know it. Nor did she know the extent of my prevarications. I mean, she could tell that my manner was shy and that my words were guarded, sure, and that I was dodgy about revealing myself to anybody. And she probably also knew that I massaged the truth about a lot of things. I mean, every guy does that, just like every woman knows it. But she didn't know that I had a knack for playing tricks with my identity. I kept that from her. I suppose I hadn't told her much of anything in the many months we were together. I was shy around her, even when she finally told me why she was looking at me that night in the theater. You were the most handsome man in the room, she said. I'd never seen hair or eyes like yours, and I remembered your face. It was an awfully forward thing for her to say. And I knew it couldn't possibly be true, but it was so new to me to feel attracted. Because I tend to spend most of my time alone with my books and movies and that same ream blank paper. I remember the time that she asked me if I wanted to see her home after our usual movie and coffee. I was tight-lipped. And then she asked me, would I rather her come home with me? When we got to my front door and I reached in my pocket for my keys, I could feel her staring at me. And I began to feel sorry for her. I mean, what was she looking for? Whatever it was, she wasn't going to find it. We got inside and I took her coat and hung it in the closet. And before I could get mine off, she went into the kitchen and took out plates, silverware, and began setting up the table. I'd like to cook something for you, she said. I just stood there in the doorway. And for a moment, I didn't want her there in my home anymore. Do you want to put on some hot water for tea? She said. So I filled the kettle on the stove with water and sat down at the table, and I watched her gently handle all my food. We finished up and washed the dishes, put them away. It was getting late, and she took the teacups and walked into my bedroom and set them down on the nightstand before sitting on my bed. and she was making me feel like a visitor. And this was the only place I ever felt safe. And then I watched her just smoothing out the blanket creases with her hands, slow, soft. And she stared at the floor, and then I wished that I were brave. I'd kiss her at the moment she looked up. But then that sad pity that I felt for her began to change. It turned into a sad hate. I mean, I just stood there in my bedroom, looking, admiring my own room, my bed, my nightstand, my books, leading all the way over to the chair that sometimes I'd fall asleep reading those strange fairy tales in. I mean, I just watched her, smoothing out the blanket creases with her hands, quietly, continuously, small, soft hands. I wanted to touch them. I couldn't move or speak. I'd rather say that she was able to help me with all this, but I mean, after months of patient compassion, she'd had enough, which I could understand completely. I mean, so we just went a ways for a while, and I mean, I still had to get on with telling my stories. So I went on as I usually did, telling my lies to strangers. I mean, some of them found my stories so charming that they would invite me with them as they were meeting a group after the movie, you know, for coffee and dessert. But I turned them down anyway, lonely as I was, because, I mean, even if I was suddenly introduced to new people, it wasn't like I was suddenly going to know them. I mean, that's the ghost of loneliness I couldn't shake. I mean, the effort it would take to really know somebody would take more than 10 lifetimes. And I was happy to turn them down anyway, as long as I knew that they were delighted by what I had to say. And I was trying to learn and accept this about myself, because I remember reading somewhere that a writer needs loneliness. But I was beginning to long to see her again. And after a while, it took me to work up the nerve to call her. Before I knew it, I found myself, after work, sitting on the train on my way to see her. And I was wearing this suit, especially for her, because I knew that she liked the way I looked at her. I was sitting right by the window on the train, and I couldn't see further out than 3 or 4 feet. It was so dark. I mean, usually I like to look at the skyline as the train goes over the bridge, but it was so misty outside from all the rain, and the clouds were blocking out all the moonlight. I couldn't see out. I hardly recognized the city. So finally, I just turned to the guy sitting next to me, and I said, "Dark night. Strange night." He said, "What do you mean strange?" "It was supposed to rain even more than all that it has been." "Well, yeah, you know, usually I like to look at the skyline as we go over the bridge, but it's too dark now." "Yes, well, I don't mind as long as I have time to read my newspaper at the end of the day, when it no longer matters." "What do you mean?" "Well, the events of the morning are trifles by nightfall, and the events of the morning are less scary. The world seems a less uncertain place." Now that struck me as a fairly intelligent thing to say, I mean, compared to most people I talk to. So I replied, "Yeah, you know, usually I like to take mine with me on the way to work, you know, read it over coffee. Sometimes routines can be comforting. They can also be another way of making the world seem like a less scary place." "Having a job can do that for you," he said. And he went back to reading his newspaper, not really interested in having a conversation with me. "So what do you do?" "Oh, no, I don't have a job. I mean a real job." "What do you mean?" "Well, because I used to be a writer." "Oh, what do you, not a real job? This bastard. Who'd this guy think he was? Not a real job." "Not a real job because you failed at it, right?" No. Quite the opposite, actually. It was so easy, I kept getting bored with it. I couldn't believe people were actually going to pay me to write something for them. Getting paid to dream, what a joke it all was. "Really?" "Oh, yes, I did well at it without even trying, really." And this guy was lying, as I thought he was, or he was maybe damn talented, as I feared. But either way, I wanted him to stop talking. But then I gave it up for other things. At last, the words I wanted to hear. A day job? Yes. I mean, there you go. I mean, nobody was that talented. So much so that he could exempt himself from all the dull, thankless work to sustain his dream life the rest of us have to work. No, it wasn't an office, though I was doing some work for the government. A bureaucrat! I could stop worrying now. The only thing worse than a failed writer. No, it wasn't. Well, I was doing covert work, actually. What do you mean? Well, to use a clamorous turn of phrase, I was a double agent. And there was this acid pit in my stomach when he said that. I mean, imagine the stories that he was seeing and hearing when I was still imitating my idols. I mean, even in a day job, I couldn't hide my jealousy. It made my face hot. And so much so that when he finally asked me what I did for a living, the only thing I could come up with saying was, I'm a theater critic. I mean, it's the only thing I could think of to say to this guy. You could tell I wasn't a real writer, but I still wanted to discuss the craft of putting words together with him. And I was being honest when I said I just couldn't handle the loneliness of writing. I mean, I think I read somewhere that a writer needs it, but just the kind I didn't want to face. So you aren't lonely now? Oh no, I got somebody. Matter of fact, I'm on my way to see it. Matter of fact, I spent about a half hour trying to get this tie rack for him. Yes, but are you lonely? And when he said that, I wished that I had a knife. I mean, I do not have much of a temper, but I do not like people who try to pick me apart. That's a personal thing to ask, I said. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. That's okay. I don't even know how we got into this conversation. That's okay. I don't even know your name. And thinking up whatever one of the names that I liked and was still trying to learn to master, I said, oh, it's Marlowe. Kit Marlowe. No, it isn't. Of course. I mean, what was I saying? He was a writer. And unlike most of these obtuse 9-to-5ers I'm used to lying to, this guy was a writer. I mean, surely he'd heard of Christopher Marlowe. And I looked up, and he was staring at me. Because that's my name, you little shit. Excuse me? No, excuse me! As if I wasn't given time enough to write while I was alive and dead at 29. As if I wasn't shortchanged. And the scholars have butchered and misinterpreted my poetry. Now, piss-poor amateurs like yourself ruin not simply my reputation, but the very name itself. And he sneered at me and he went back to reading his paper. I didn't have much to say after that. See, the thing, I always knew that it was wrong. But I did it because I got to feel like a storyteller. I mean, like in the great oral tradition of storytellers, I mean, you know, men who move through wagons and villages, spinning yarns, pass the time. And that's all I can say for myself. I mean, the prosecution, the judge, and the jury, they all know that I'm a criminal, that I'm guilty of deceit. But I've told thousands and thousands of these lies to people instead of making an effort to be real with them. Or with her. The thing with her, it wasn't like it was some bad habit that I never did around her, that I wouldn't be thinking these things, I could just easily break it. It was that the only time she ever let her hair down in front of me, and I could smell her, rather than be brave and touch her face, I just couldn't help but think what a lovely thing it would be to put into a scene. I mean, if only the urge to want to tell stories was great enough to make me want to put them down on paper. Because then I'd be free of myself. I could say I was someone else, tell his story from his point of view, make things up, live through somebody else. But it never occurred to me that some of these people I was making up, might actually exist. Oh, sure, Marlowe was alive 400 years before I was born. But this Marlowe, sitting on the train across from me, pretending not to notice me staring at him while he read his newspaper, he wasn't wearing, a puffy shirt or a crushed red velvet vest or breeches. This was New York City. On the subway! I mean, this guy sitting across from me was dressed the way I had imagined myself to be when I would go around and introduce myself as Kit Marlowe, like in buses and restaurants. I mean, what I mean is, he was dressed like me. And he didn't look like he did in his portraits either. I mean, in his poetry days in London, his hair was pretty long, hung by his neck, kind of messy. But here, as he sat across from me, he looked like me. I don't mean mirror image, we weren't twins, but the goatee was gone and his hair was cut shorter like my length. I mean, just sitting on the train, reading the newspaper, the art section of the New York Times, the theater section, naturally. And I couldn't believe it. Revealed to me. The guy had been quiet for 400 years because being dead and stabbed in the eye tends to limit the things that one has to say. But he was revealed to me. And then I looked up and saw that he was still staring at me. So I decided to stare right back. Just two of us, locked in eyes, silent passengers. And we went on like this for over half an hour. And I began to think that maybe he wasn't crazy when he said it was Marlowe because, well, here's the thing, he never blinked. Not once. The whole time we were locked in eyes, he never blinked. But I did thousands of times, involuntary. We have to make a conscious effort not to do it. He looked perfectly natural, not blinking. And then that's when I got the second of the two surprises of that train ride. See, as I was looking back and forth at my fellow commuters and then back at this guy, it hit me. Nobody on the train was even looking up. Why would they? Tired people on the way home from the office, oblivious, thinking about what to make for dinner. New Yorkers never notice anything. He was a genius, a poet. He was Shakespeare's idol. And he was also a spy. Those men, they weren't fighting over the bill. He wasn't killed in a tavern brawl. They assassinated him. No doubt it had something to do with all that espionage he conducted for a living. The underworld he obsessed over finally swallowed him whole. Here on the train, he blended in comfortably with the rest of us. The train started to slow down. I looked out the window and I didn't even recognize where we were. I'd missed my stop a long time ago. I wasn't paying attention. We were in some part of the Bronx. And I thought, I have to get out here because otherwise I'll be taken further out. Because another borough of the city can feel like another state, especially at night, especially the Bronx. It started to slow down, and I watched him get up. He moved towards the exit, the sliding doors, and just quietly, calmly, no rush, these sad, slow footsteps. I began to feel sorry for him. I was afraid that he could turn on me suddenly if I angered him. Doors opened, people got on and got off, and he left, just kind of silently moving through the crowd of commuters. But I never lost sight of him. When the crowd cleared and the platform was empty, we were the only two people left in sight. I could hear a siren blocks away, but when it faded, the platform was even quieter. And his face was silhouetted under his brimmed hat, all awash in the soft orange light from all the street lamps of the train station. I couldn't see his eyes. I I was afraid to say anything. And I had no idea which train to take to get back to Brooklyn. We hear stories of ghosts who stalk the living, but I was the one who was stalking Marlowe. That's how it is with ghosts, not the other way around. Just my own mortal curiosity. It was quiet, and then I began to feel sorry for him. I blurted out an apology, and he turned to me, didn't say anything. "Where are you headed?" I said. He didn't say anything. Then he asked me why I got off the train. I couldn't say anything, but then when he asked me where I was headed, and I said, "Brooklyn," he said, well, that's where he was headed too. Well, while we're waiting, you want to go get some coffee? So we walked to this all-night diner about like 6 blocks away, the kind of place where they have those glazed fruit cakes underneath the plastic lids on the counter. We each had a piece cut. Marlowe got the key lime pie. I paid for the coffee and the dessert, had a wrap to go, tucked under a bag, a paper bag in my arm. And when I turned around, he was already outside. So I paid, left, walked outside, and when I got outside, he said, "I can show you how to do it." I'm glad to hear that, I said, even though I had no idea what he was talking about. It wasn't until after we got off the Brooklyn train and were going down the platform steps that he said, "I can show you the secret." I mean, if he knew what I was thinking. And then I realized that I was supposed to have met her over an hour ago. And I don't know why I didn't just pick up a payphone and call her, but I don't think it would have had any point. I mean, she was already hanging on by just a strand of patience as it was. I couldn't stretch it anymore. It was just going to break. And how could I pass this up? Why don't we eat and talk and drink at your home, and I can show you the secret? So we were on our way. I was going to learn how to be a great storyteller. When we got to my front door, and I was trying to balance everything, the coffee cups with my keys, and I dropped my keys on the floor. And when I bent down to pick them up, they just kind of slid away from me, like they were going down an icy slope. And I reached over to get them, and they hoisted themselves up in the air, clinking like ice in a glass or wind chimes, and then they landed in the open, waiting palm of Marlowe. "Allow me." He walked right by me without looking at me, unlocked my front door, and I think I went in first. And I didn't even recognize my own apartment, even though it was the same in every last detail. I took his coat, I hung it in the closet, and he went into the kitchen, began taking out plates and silverware, set at the table. I took off my coat, hung it up, and we sat down. And I wondered lots of things about it. Did he have a place to stay? Did he have friends? Did he have a job? But the first thing I said was, "Can you fly?" And he looked at me, and then I felt immediately like an academic. Asking such degrading questions. No, I can't fly, he said. Oh, okay. Well, can you walk through walls? Don't be knavish, he said. What about entering people's bodies? That's disgusting. So then I wondered lots of other things. I mean, I asked him, and he said, well, I stay in homeless shelters around the city. I move around quite a lot. He explained that he couldn't fly, but that he could make things fly. Yes, but it's not what you think. Just little things. I can't move buildings. Just things I wouldn't otherwise be able to lift with my hands. Books, keys, silverware. It's like tensing a muscle. I can't keep it up for very long. How did he get money? I mean, did he have to sleep? I don't have to sleep or eat, but I only do so when I miss my dreams or the taste of food. But even then it's just coffee and a pastry or something. And I get money by charming, lonely female librarians or earnestly approaching policemen in the street. Most of them are willing to help out an Englishman in need. Something about the accent, I don't know, that it's American. And that's how he got money to go. I mean, he never went to museums. He went to concerts, but he never went to the theater either. And I began to wonder, when was he going to tell me the secret? I mean, because I'd sacrificed something important for him. And I thought about calling her, but like I said, I don't think it would have had any point. And then I finally asked him about the writing. And he explained that it was just something he did a long time ago, when it still mattered to him and helped pass the time. Sometimes he still looks at it when he's in a library. And that's the last thing I remember him saying, because I fell asleep here in my chair, where I read all of my strange fairy tales. I woke up the next morning, still in my clothes, my shoes were still on, and Marlowe was gone. He washed the dishes and they were drying in the sink, but he hadn't told me about Marlowe the liar. Didn't hold up his end. I mean, only took me for my company and my conversation and my coffee. I mean, why would 400 years be enough to change a man? And I thought about calling her, but she didn't want to hear it once I finally did. And I remember reading somewhere that a writer needs loneliness. And that's wrong. Loneliness needs a writer. I finally realized that all I could sustain were just brief lies. He's gone, but I mean, he left me with something. I mean, I suppose I should be grateful for that. I have something real to tell now. I mean, it isn't mine, so I can't take credit for it and say that I made it up. But, I mean, it's just something that happened to me. But it's mine. I can add to it, change things around as I wish, add details, just tell it over and over to anybody who will listen